All right, the floor is open for any questions or comments. Donna, you had your hand up?
The first thing I thought of when you were talking about your family was blessed are the peacemakers. And I think that that is a quality. Doesn't mean you're just going to be silent, but somebody once said, when everyone is losing their mind, if you can keep yours together and be peaceful while they're going off, you have arrived as a peacemaker. And that is something we need to practice. And so just thinking about this, I've been wanting to work on this being a peacemaker. I fail sometimes, but the intention of my heart is there, that I am very aware of myself and my need not to look good, but actually to take action. And sometimes when I fail, I feel the conviction. Guilt is not a bad thing when used as a conviction that you need to do better because you have Holy Spirit and you have Bible. And so, like, you are without excuse. And so don't excuse yourself from failing a relationship of which previously I used all like, well, mentally I'm not help. Okay, blah, blah, blah. No one is listening, Donna. Blah, blah, blah. When you are well, when you are aware, when you are in touch, I think with the real Jesus, when you are in tune with your intentionality of being like him, you will not make excuses and miss the boat. You will definitely discipline your heart. And I think, I often get a little bit um, trying to ponder things like healing. And you have to have immense love for God, immense love outside of even your theology in order to touch a life. And so the emphasis on love, not so much theology, the emphasis is on practicing the love of God, the presence of God in relationship, of which, although I have failed, I am more aware that, less and less I don't want to fail. I don't want to be angry. I'm sick of, the excuses that I have made, and you have to be able to direct your heart intentionally to be like Christ. It takes intentionality, not excuses like, oh my God, this is just so horrible and so hard. Then why are you a Christian? Why did you accept the lordship means he's got you. And to practice what you preach is my intention this year. Watch Michael hold me accountable. Please do, honey. Because I go off too much in the kitchen about, well, look at all I'm doing. I'm the only one cleaning dishes. Well, too bad. Maybe you're the one that's supposed to clean the dishes. And so again, I catch myself doing this, but the reason I notice it more and more is because I crave. My humanity needs to change. My excuses aren't, God doesn't want to hear it. He wants you to arrive. He wants you to be serious about your transformation. He doesn't want just words anymore. After a few years, he's like, well, get to the doing of it. Be doers of the word and not hearers only. Sick of your excuses. And I think that we can arrive. I love this practicing the way stuff. The last two, George and you, it's really boosted, not only my intellect, but my desire to want to get better at organizing my not only my brain but my practice, because if you don't practice you'll never perfect it. So even though I might stumble, I don't want to. I want to be able to really work this. It's not just the renewed mind. I mean, if you're in the kitchen yelling, then you're not working it. Something's wrong here. And so you need to be real intentional and real desirous to want to be Christ to others. Thanks for this teaching, Sergio. It was excellent.
Thank you, Donna. And I love the example that you gave because sometimes there's all this language that's so poetic and it sounds, I don't know, just way up here. And we often forget that, oh, this connects to what I do in my kitchen. This connects to how I put my daughters to bed. It connects to everything in our lives. It connects to how we talk to people when we're driving. et cetera, et cetera. And yes, it can also apply to bigger things, but it applies to these everyday, we're going to the store. Uh, what are our actions and our words pointing to? So, and then the other thing that I love that you pointed out too is, you know, there's a kind of a silly saying that might sound out of context. I think it was Mike Tyson. He said, everybody has a plan till you get punched in the mouth. And, it's like, why did that? I remember that right now while you're talking, because it's like, okay, I'm going to follow Jesus. And then somebody does something to annoy you. It's like all the words of Jesus just go out the window. And it's like, no, 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 wait a minute. This moment right now. Yes, I can make a decision to trust Jesus and to follow him. But this moment right now, when I got upset or overreacted to somebody doing something, or I thought somebody was doing something, maybe they weren't even doing it. This is when I need to remember Jesus' words and practice them. And maybe even humbly say, God, I'm really bad at this. Jesus, I'm really bad at this. Please help me with this in this moment. So thank you. Rosalind, you had your hand up as well.
Yeah, I thought this was a really, really good teaching. I really loved it, and I think I've also sort of waited, I think, for somebody to bring that perspective, because I've noticed there's a lot of focus on, doing good works, but it's actually just something that anyone can actually do. We can all do good things. We can all do good works. But when it comes to the miracles that were happening a lot around the time of Jesus and the apostles, that's not something that we see in abundance these days. We don't see a lot of blind people get their vision back, or a lot of paralyzed people start walking, and all these things. And I think we all sort of need to realize how much more there is for us that we haven't, I mean, I don't think anyone thinks they have actually arrived, but there's so much more that God wants to do through us. And I think that probably the main reason why it's not happening in a larger scale than we are seeing today is because I think it's a lot to do with how we spend our time or our days. And I mean, I'm kind of a hypocrite in this respect, but I'll say it anyway. And that I think everything flows from how well we keep the first commandment to love God with all our heart, all our soul, all our mind, and all our strength. Because everything else, like loving our neighbor as ourselves, all of that flows from the first commandment. Because if we try to love people in our own strength, it's not going to go very smoothly. But when we love people with the love of God that is filling us up, that's when it's easy to love people, even when they behave really badly. And so I think in terms of not just the love, but the miracles. I think we will start to see more of those things happening when we are more surrendered to God in our everyday lives, and when we are spending a lot more time seeking Him and just, yeah, I think, there's a difference between praying for somebody to get healed, which is us exercising our own wish for somebody else and God's wish as well. But another thing is when you're just loving somebody and God reveals to you in the moment exactly what that person needs to experience to be healed, and you hear it clearly and you do it, and the miracle happens in front of your eyes. I think things need to happen out of a relationship first and foremost with God, and that everything else flows from that, and it can flow so effortlessly like it did in the life of Jesus. It was effortless. I think Jesus was just loving God with all his heart, all his soul, all his mind, and all his strength. And then from that, God anointed Jesus, and then the things just happened without any effort, hardly. It was just Jesus just doing whatever God showed him and told him. And so I think, that's where we should arrive at eventually, or that's, um and it's, easier said than done. But I really liked everything you said. All the verses you shared were brilliant, and yeah, really good. Thank you. I talked for too long now.
No, thank you for your comments. That was a really good point. And I've even said this myself, that and I guess it technically is 2 commandments that Jesus says: love God and then love your neighbor. But that's a good point. I think in 2 different ways. The second one is dependent on the first one. If I'm mad at someone, or it's oftentimes my love for God, if I acknowledge him, if I choose not to turn away from him and from his ways, from his commandments, that will cause me to, okay, I don't really want to do this difficult thing. But if I don't do this difficult thing, then I'm simultaneously turning my back on God in this moment. And if I want to be glorifying him and honoring him and obedient to him, then I can't walk away from this situation, or I can't go into the situation in the same way. So definitely, if we're really going to be obedient to the second part of that, the first part of that has to kind of be the energy behind it, or the motivator, the purpose that would drive this obedience to the second commandment of loving your neighbor. So that's a great point. Go ahead, Paul. You had your hand up.
Hi, Sergio. Thank you very much for that teaching. I thought that was lovely, and there was some really good points in there. It was great that you picked this subject. I think it's a really good subject, and I like that you tied in what George had talked about last week with what that love is, and I think that that fitted quite well. So thank you for that. And yeah, I think that, I mean, this is something that I think about a lot, but there's a lot more should than actual, which makes me feel a bit guiltier some of the time, a lot of the time even. You know, you've got such busy lives that you're not really seeing other people the way that you should. And yeah, how can you be a shining light to others when you're hidden away like a monk in some um, monastery? You know, that's what it feels like, you know, and life can be like that, and it is hard. But so I think it does take some effort to actually get that time with others and actually have the opportunity to be a shining light, you know. You don't put a light and put it under a bushel, as Jesus says. So I think it's essential that we do get that time with each other. But even in the absence of that, you know, that we do see people and we do see them in our homes and our families and so on. And it's critical that we do that at home too, because it's all good practice for when we see other people, you know. And if you can't be faithful in the little, and surely at home is the people that you are most comfortable with or should be, you know. So how can you be struggling there? So if there could be some work there, and I know that we've all got our ups and downs and good moments and bad moments, you know, depending on what life throws at us. So um, I don't know that that is something that we'd ever be perfect at, loving our neighbours ourselves. I think that whether we do it out of pure compassion and love for our neighbour, uh, or whether we do it out of the fact that we're commanded, the main thing is that we do it, because that it'll be disobeying God and not loving God not to do it. So whether you like it or not, do it. But I do also think that as we get older and wiser and learn more about God and get to know God better, and the wisdom that George also talked about last week that comes from God, and which you mentioned that we can pray for and get, you know, I think that really also helps us to love our neighbour as ourselves in a more genuine way, and not just strictly out of pure obedience and forced obedience, which is the bottom line. We have to do it, and if it's forced obedience, so be it. That is not necessarily a problem with the commandment. I think that's more of a problem with us when we feel that it's forced because we don't have that wisdom, and we need to pray about it. So I kept that in mind. I also thought about other contexts of the obedience, and one of the ones that I find really difficult is work. You know, it's one thing obeying God and being honest and doing the honest day's work and being kind to others and so on. And yes, I do that, and I strive to do that. But is there a fear in the back of my head about telling that this is all God and this is out of obedience to God and out of love to God? Yes, there is. I openly admit that I am afraid of people, which I shouldn't be, and that is a struggle in my life. Um, I I became a Christian not that long ago, and it's a huge change from what people knew before. And I must admit I'm a bit cowardly about the reaction I'd get from people at times, and that's something I'm struggling with and something I'm working on. But I still work to obey God in everything, and I think that's a absolute minimum. So even if I mean, and what bothers me is that I get the credit for that. They think that I'm Mr. Nice Guy, you know, and what a nice character and all this stuff, you know, which I feel really bad about, because that glory should be going to God, and the only way that would be is if they knew that why I was being the way that I am. So it's something I pray about, finding a way to tell and open up, and but in the meantime, I'm absolutely focusing on the obedience first and praying for the wisdom that'll open up the rest to me. So, yeah, that's me and my thoughts that I had about this, but I'm grateful for it. And so thank you very much, Sergio.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your comments. I know that's the other thing about these commandments. It's when we're not hitting it right on the mark, it becomes obvious to us, or at least I guess that could be a first step. And I've been in the same boat as what you've described as well. So, something that might encourage you. I heard a short little 10-minute video from Henry Cloud. I don't know if you're familiar with any of his work, but he was talking about when something's difficult, and it could be something really complex, or or something as small as cleaning up a room. He said just commit to doing one little tiny piece of it. One little tiny one. Maybe one little word about maybe just saying thank God in the middle of of a conversation. Sometimes doing that little tiny piece can either A, be something that you build upon, or B, it can be it can open the floodgates, and all of a sudden you're able to do much more than what was so intimidating. So I just heard that a couple of days ago, and it blessed me to hear that.
Yeah, thanks, Sergio.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
See, Ray, you had your hand up.
Yeah, thank you very much for the teaching, Sergio. I thought it was wonderful. And it reminded me of a teaching by Samuel Camarillo that we had heard some time ago about the glory of God. And what did that mean? Because the word, just like the word love is so ambiguous at times, so the word glory can be ambiguous at times. And Samuel had taught how it was about how great God is, how amazing our Heavenly Father is, and how that it's really not about us. When we shine the light, it's to shine the light upon God and to point Him out. And I think your teaching was very good, very to the point, that it's not about us, it's about Him. And that we are to bring the spotlight of His greatness to us, on Him, so that other people can see that as well. We see it every day in our lives, but others are completely missing it. They're blind to God's greatness. And so, and I really do appreciate how you adopted George's definition, which I thought was also very helpful in understanding what is it that what's our motivation, that we are to direct our efforts to the good, to benefit another person or other people. So anyway, well done. Thank you very much, Sergio.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a great point. A lot of these words, we just kind of throw them around and don't even realize we're not even aware, or at least I can speak for myself. I'm not even aware of what the word means. And then it's nice to stop for a second. Oh, that's what it means. And then sometimes it connects various things together that I didn't see a connection for. John, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I think that I just want to add to what Ray said, that word glory goes really nicely with your teaching. The Greek word that's translated glory, its base meaning in ancient Greek is opinion. And so it came to mean this idea of people's opinion of you, right? Your reputation. And so a lot of a lot of the verses where you see that word being used, you'll see that, the glory of God, that kind of thing. It's talking about his reputation, that we're supposed to be building up and defending God's reputation in the world. And I thought, that it makes it so much clearer, when you think about it that way, because the word glory is kind of this sort of amorphous word. It's just, it's hard to grasp hold of what that exactly means. And so it's, I like the, this idea that you presented on, and Samuel had been doing as well, that this idea that it's not just we're doing this stuff for the sake of doing it. There's a purpose behind it, which is this idea of ultimately is bringing people to God and making people want to get to know God and to follow him. And so anyway, this is very good. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I really like that, building up his reputation, because if you think about the words that Jesus was speaking, the words that his disciples were speaking, that's exactly what they were doing. They were building up God's reputation. Look at everything God's done. He's done this. He's done that. I couldn't do anything without him. That's a really neat way of saying it, building up his reputation. Thank you. I think I'm gonna end the recording here. Just because I guess we're at a little over an hour, I think. So, and then I'll take the last comments as well. So if you're listening to this online, thank you so much for joining us, or for hearing this teaching. Hopefully it blessed your life. And again, you can go to a2kchurch.org, and as well as, if this really blessed you, you can subscribe to this channel, as well as like the video. So God bless you and have a great day.